Good afternoon, everyone. Late afternoon. Great to see so many people here, and we're in for a real treat with the latest in our series of creative dialogues. My name is Will Higby. I'm a professor in film studies, and I'm also Associate Pro-Vice Chancellor in the Faculty of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences here at Exeter. And it's a real pleasure to welcome you to the latest event in our Creative Dialogue series. I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to our guest this evening, television producer, screenwriter, editor and author John Yorke. John will be in conversation with filmmaker and author Don Boyd, who is an honorary professor of film practice with us here at Exeter and a long-standing collaborator and supporter of the university in the area of arts and creativity. So, welcome John to Exeter for the first time, and Don, welcome back. Genuine pleasure to see so many people here in the audience, and kind of a real range from across the university, staff, students and beyond. So a really warm welcome to the campus and to this event if you're from outside of the university. The Creative Dialogue series that was established with the kind of support and vision of Don Boyd in 2018 has built a really strong reputation for bringing leading voices in the arts and creative industries to Exeter. Previous guests have included the actor Charles Dance, novelist Mira Shamsi, writer and presenter Stephen Fry, composer Nitin Swanee, actors and writers Mira Sayal and Sanjeev Bhaskar, and the investigative journalist Nick Davies, to name a few.
And Mark Thompson, the Director General of the BBC, once John's employed.
There we go, that's me. So the aim of this series has always been to offer university colleagues, students and the wider Exeter community insights into how exceptional creatives, artists and practitioners approach their work and creative practice. It provides an opportunity for our guests to reflect on their careers and their creative process, and for a public audience to engage directly with them through discussion and questions. And there'll be a chance to Q&A later on. All our guests in the Creative Dialogue series are leaders in their respective fields, and tonight's guest is no exception. We're really delighted that John has accepted the invitation to come here for Creative Dialogue. John Yorke is widely recognised, and I think I have to say this as one of the world's leading experts on narrative. His work explores not only how stories function, but why they resonate so powerfully with audiences across cultures. As former head of Channel 4 drama, controller of BBC drama production and managing director of Company Pictures, John has developed and overseen some of the most successful and acclaimed television dramas of recent decades, including EastEnders, Shameless, Life on Mars and Wolf Hall. Alongside this body of work, he's shown a deep commitment to nurturing new talent, notably through founding the BBC Writers Academy and through his work as a tutor at the National Film and Television School. He's in high demand as a consultant, keynote speaker and narrative expert, and through his training company, he's worked with broadcasters and streamers including the BBC, Netflix, Sony Pictures Animation and Seesaw Films. So, given the wealth of knowledge and experience at his disposal, we're really especially grateful that in addition to this evening's Creative Dialogue, he's also going to be leading a dedicated story workshop tomorrow with some extremely lucky students from our department of the creative writing and communications, drama and film. John's also a successful author. His book, Into the Woods, How Stories Work and Why We Tell Them, from 2014, has sold more than 250,000 copies worldwide, and I think it's fair to say is a key reference for writers and scholars alike, offering a groundbreaking analysis of story structure. And his latest book, which was published earlier this year, called Trip to the Moon, Understanding the Power of Story, extends this work further, exploring how narrative shapes not only drama and fiction, but also politics, religion and public discourse. In conversation with John this evening, we're delighted to welcome Don Boyd. Don, as I said, is an old friend, ambassador and long-standing supporter of activities at the University of Exeter, as well as being an honorary professor in film practice. And we're very proud of the association that we have with Don, because he is in his own right an accomplished and respected director, producer and author. So thank you, Don, for leading this. I know we're in safe hands with you tonight. And following the conversation between Don and John, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and we're really keen for you to have a chance to answer the questions that you want to, and really encourage you to take part in the Q&A and ask a question if you have one. So thanks again to John for joining us, to Don for leading what I'm sure will be a stimulating and insightful conversation, and also a thanks to Professor Jane Milling, Head of Communications, Drama and Film, Professor Vika Plock, Head of English and Creative Writing, and also Professor Helen Berry, who's Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor within our faculty, for their generous support in making this event possible. So, really hope you enjoyed this evening's creative dialogue, and you're able to join us afterwards for a drink and to continue the conversation. And now with that, over to Don and John.
First of all, just to say it's a great pleasure to be here. I love doing these things, and I love having people long like John to talk to chat to. Hearing Will talk about it, no thanks. John, let's just dive in. What is story?
If you have a spare week, I might be able to answer that.
Well, we've got a few.
Got it. The conclusion I come to in the new book, or the latest book, was story is a unit of knowledge recognized for guidance. What I mean by that, fundamentally, is story is the way we take sense impressions, our experience of the world, our knowledge of other things, and pull it together into a coherent whole, which we then use as a bit of some cornerstone. By units of knowledge, what I mean by that, if you look at its essential ingredients, in Screenwriters will talk about the insight. The insight is a question to which the rest of the story is the answer.
It hangs on there.
Yeah, so what a story is, really, is a question and answer dramatized, which is, that gives you the units of knowledge, which you then want to, ideally, pass on. The most powerful stuff in the world. But, so, you could, if you were sitting in a tribe 2,000 years ago, you're living next to a jungle, you could set and rationally explain to a figure, like, probably best not to go in there, because you don't know that they can supply or run water. Your logical is, or you could just go, they're the dragons.
Yes.
But you're going to go, they're the dragons, because it's martial powerful, and, can basically justify. So that's essential. Yes.
Following on from that, it would be good to hear you give a few examples of various guises and the sort of, the way the vehicles for the story. I mean, let me just tell you a quick story about a relationship I had with Louis Malle, whom I never met. I made a documentary for the BBC about Louis Malle, and David Hare contributed to it. And I asked him what his sessions were like with Malle. It was based on a book called Damage.
Yeah.
And David said he would have me in every morning when I was writing, and I wrote close to where he was, and I met each other every day. And the first thing he did was that when we maybe keep to 10 pages in, he'd say, tell me the story. Also the word story, as used in France, as you may know, about affairs that people have. Oh, what's the story there?
Yeah.
What are the genres that you would put into your guises, that you put stories into? Because the book is full of some extraordinary examples, particularly political ones.
Well, I think, I started off by just purely, I started by reading screenwriting books and been slightly frustrated by them because they told you what should happen on which page, but they never really told you why. And so why is, if your students, you know why everything is the most of all. And so I started from that basis, but after a while, I didn't make this obvious profession there. Well, story isn't just the formalized things we find in film, at books, podcasting. It's politics, it's religion, it's any medium that requires the passing on of information. We'd always gather people towards you and those who want to give. So politics is the main arena where you see it most clearly. The dominant role of political storytelling is the one with the best story buildings. And that doesn't mean the most logical, it's the most powerful.
The idea is, of course, that's the valuable.
Oh, yeah.
The way that the media public how push out these stories. There's a mention in your book of the famous statement by Roosevelt when Pearl Harbor. And apparently initially it was drafted in with, and then he made some word changes, and it's become one of the most famous statements ever.
a day the more than in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he drafted something quite factual, and then he went back to it. And he just changed to see what's. I can't actually remember what they are now. But the difference is extraordinary because the first one is factual, the second draft is deep emotion, and that's the trick. That's Donald Trump's trick. Is don't paint the splash through that emotion.
Horrifying thing is that all sorts of terrible people would probably be rather good at that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, we talk about stories. Something that's good, but it's a weapon. It's a terrible weapon. It's capable of creating evil. Yeah, I mean, my dad taught me that when I was very young. So if you watch any orator, suspect them. He said.
What did your dad do? What was his job?
Well, he was a psychoanalyst. He sent his dog to he went on to that. But his experience came from terrible trauma in the war.
Right.
And as a back of that, that made him just never trust a politician. He said, so he brought kind of critical rigor to any statement, which I guess at the time, after fighting for many years, I obviously inherited.
I worked with Malcolm McLaren, who was the sex business guy. He's a never class hippie.
Never trust a populist politician.
I'd like to move on to something that is clearly controversial in the arena that you've been involved in, which is writing books about, and actually write screenplays and etc. Which is to bring up that whole thing about rules.
Yes.
And what the rules are, and I'd like to delve into that a little bit if I can.
Sure.
I mean, I always say to my people I teach here, don't use the word teach, but I always think there are no rules, but of course there are, but they can be broken. 3 acts, 5 acts, 10 questions, and then you've got the Aristotle Eunikes.
Yeah.
It can be baffling. And then you've got the Joseph Campbell book.
Yeah.
Which at one stage became the Holy Bible for anybody who write screenplays.
Yeah. The heroes.
If you can bear it, can you just give us a little flavour of your views of each of those? Just a flavour.
Okay, well, they're all...
Everybody has hands up anybody who hasn't heard of what a 5-act structure is in the script in this book. Who hasn't? I think, yeah. Well, there are theories about having various acts and stuff for a script. The same that you have 5 acts of a play, Shakespeare's play. But John has brilliantly delineated all the various philosophies around those, all of them, including the ones that he himself would probably adhere to if you should work ourselves. Yeah, sort of, so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a huge question. It's important to
everything.
I mean, the central part of the debate that agitates people is I don't want to learn that because that's just formula.
Yeah.
And when you read certain books, that is just saying I have to do this on this page, and that's just silly.
No.
So I think people who write against that, but I think formula is not the same as craft skill. And the thing that exercised me for one time about studying writing was that a lot of writers refused to explore in any way whatsoever. There culture was, I'm a genius, I can sit in my garret, I will stick a pen in my books, I can bleed all over the page, you will make it. And I found that fairly insufferable as well, because I thought that, you don't have that in fine art. You spend years studying the golden ratio, you need to understand these things. And so to me, it's like, okay, well, there has to be some to this. And so I read the screenwriter, all the screenwriters books, and I said, it frustrated me that said, why? So for me, I thought, well, I'll try and work out why it's myself. Unfortunately, I own the BBC, let me do this for me, it's very generous of them. So, 3 acts is not, as some people would say, a Western conscript that is foisted on population. 3 acts is really, all this is that you're sitting there, you're listening to me, you're the hunting revolution. That's what it is. I exist, I observe, I change. It's the central way by which humans assimilate information. and make sense of it and then pass it on. And that is not unique to the West. It's the same culture that ends up. You'll find different formulations of it.
Japanese poetry, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, the Japanese poetry leads to Kishito Getsu, which is the Asian style, it's a parasite would be a good example of that. But it's the same underneath. It's just a form, a start like a sonnet. It's like an underlying structure. The light says to observe change. Never really changes. Okay, so 3 acts. So 5 acts, really, which is fascinating only because 5 acts is really useful to look at what goes on in the middle of a story. Yeah, it's like taking a microscope to 3-act film and looking inside. Yeah, oh my God, it's much clearer.
In my terms, getting to that middle point is nightmare. That's almost the most important part.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what 5 acts reveals. It's like what you start to realize the story structure is really a journey to the middle of any story, and then the consequences of what happens in the middle. The best example would be the Gruffalo. Gruffalo is kind of the perfect story because it's the mouse doesn't have lost. He goes on a journey into the heart of the forest. Halfway through, he finds, oh my God, there is a Gruffalo. Now I've got to tame it. And so he goes on the reverse journey, learns how to tame the beast, the monster in the heart of the forest, and ends up with the nut. Your response, you're perfect.
Yes.
Guide to the sales structure. And you see that in all of Shakespeare.
My granddaughter's adoring that right now.
But it's the same as the godlike kid in exactly I'm going to do a story to make it in her hovering story. It's exactly the same. That's the lesson. What you find in all art type of storytelling is the meaning is in the middle of the story. And so once I work that out, then all the other things make sense. People talk about the hero's journey and the journey to the dark age. But it's just a metaphor for story structure.
How do you rationalize the fact that until maybe now I'm going to pluck out centuries worth of time, but now if we think about somebody like, was it Freitag?
Gustav Freitag.
Freitag.
Yeah.
It's middle of the 19th century. But how do you work out the literature that was before anybody had the ability to analyze the way Freitag did? He was very, very passionate about 5-act structure, particularly, and wrote a famous book about it. How do you rationalize all the stuff that was written and created by people that had absolutely no idea specifically about the rules to deal with 5 acts or 3 acts or crises and structures and stuff like that? How do you rationalize that? Does that mean that they somehow subconsciously manage to arrive at something that when you analyze it, it fits into the what you...
Well, you have to be careful of confirmation bias. That's the thing you're always fighting against. But I think, if you look at all of Gustav Freitag, and then there's William Archer, in the 1890s, Playmaking, it's a very important book. And then there's a whole series of books, in the early years of science.
Yes.
You have to make writing films. And they're all, but again, if you look at all of us, they're all really trying to say the same thing. They're all trying to destroy the shape and archetypal story has, which is often very clear in cinema and in theatre. It's the same Shakespeare patterns. Freitag is really striking because he was the first one who realised. I remember when I first read it, and he said the climax is in the middle. And I thought, maybe that's not what a climax is. The climax has to be at the end. I just got a job on EastEnders in the early 1990s, and I was trying to work out how to be a script editor.
Right.
And I looked at it, I thought, that's crazy. How is that going to help you get Pauline Fowler into the wrong track? Doesn't make sense at all. But of course, he was right. The climax is in the middle. It's the middle of the story. So you take all the Harry Potter books together, exactly halfway through, it's Voldemort emerges, stretches over the north there, and everything changes at that point. It's the same as the monster in Gruffalo. So they're all saying the same thing. And actually, because they're fighting, it's just very useful to see, oh God, it's there, isn't it? Yeah. And that leads you back to Shakespeare. Again, you look at Shakespeare, it's just really striking. Exactly halfway through a third, he swaddles the ark is made. Exactly halfway to bed, and kills down quite Francis Staples. No, so you see this. So all of this stuff is everybody's saying the same thing. And so for me, I was just trying to find a way to say why. And the why is simple. What we tend to do is storytelling is order out of chaos. That stories want to be ordered. They want to be profoundly symmetrical. Then you see that some book like Tom Jones, just like a mad plotted plot, fold it up, it's symmetrical. So I tend to feel like enough. The human brain tends to digitize information and turn it into really clear patterns. And because the humans more easily digest symmetrical, clear stories.
With those sequence stories, for instance, Dickens, Thackeray, such like, and obviously Tom Jones, some that was pushed out in significance. How do you relate that to what you're talking about here? When, the idea was that you kept the person involved enough to buy the next section, read the next section with the newspaper.
Yeah.
Do each of those sections have their own climaxes, their own middles? They do.
Yeah, I mean, what you're after, what Dickens do, I mean, again, he says what you're after is do. Yeah, every episode. That's what is you are, oh my God, I've got to come back, I've got some more money in the slot. And you get that sort of thing, really.
Because that's obviously what's going on with all the streamers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at the most powerful shows that Baby Gwyn did, Squidgate, they're packed with what you call reversals, which is that moment of like, oh my God.
Right, what are they going to do next?
Yeah, and then the next episode, oh, of course. If it's not work, it's hard to do.
Do they structure generally in writers' rooms in that way? Do they?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, I mean, if you see the classic American writers' room, what they'll do is they'll find, they'll know the story of the season, and then they'll work on episode by episode. And what they'll do first of all is they'll find the commercial breaks. You find those. You do those, bang those in, those are your tap pans, and then you put in, 10 seats in between each commercial break. If you talk to Chris Chibnall, who wrote Broadchurch and Doctor Who, he has a formula for everything he writes, which is, he says it's 10 scenes hook, 10 scenes hook, 10 scenes hook, 10 scenes bloody big hook. He's always used that.
Was that even comprehended?
Yeah. I'm going to come back. Yeah, it's like, because what you want is that, oh my God, because what that's doing is pumping you full of adrenaline.
Right.
It's a drug, it's drugging you. And of course, it's like smoking. Cigarette makes you want to have the next cigarette. It's that. So, that's a very formalised way of doing it. But Chris uses it because he knows he needs
Right. Going to your era as founding, really, the BBC Studio Writers Camp, did you find that was? Yes. And you were brought in by me to do that?
Well, they didn't bring me to do that. They brought me in to run independent drama, which is, commissioning for outside, but also to run continuing drama, which was with soaps, Holby City, EastEnders, Casualty, and Doctors. And so I had this really kind of weird split perspective because I was doing all the high-end, what we call the posh stuff, right? Which I loved. And I was also doing the really big popular shows that paid for everything else to burn it in. But I love that as well. I know. I just basically that Dickensian. I love the fact that you make a of EastEnders in 20 minutes for watch it. But after a while, I realized with the posh stuff that I wasn't really learning it. Because you commission Jed Mercurio, Paul Cross, Devin Muswell, and then they just do it, and they were really good at it. There's nothing for you to do. Just literally get that down. Where the work needed was.
They would have wanted your approbation, though. I know this from my own experience.
Yeah, and that's what they got. But for me, it was like it was lovely to see them at work. I had that huge aspect, but it wasn't the same as. We've got a massive problem. We don't have enough license to write the show.
That's what led to the academy.
Yeah, so it was really that, and then realising that, I can't headhunt people because we don't have that kind of budget. So we need to trade writers.
Okay, now I'm opening up another can of beans or words, or beans. But taking the academy.
Yeah.
Knowing the rules, knowing what you knew about analysing material to work on before. Everybody else achieved their great works of art in those terms. How how did you deal with a bunch of rookies thinking probably geniuses? or put it this way, could be gifted. How do you structure the way to get them to understand about writing? Because most people think, I would be right trying to go to my will, shall it well emerge, and you know, may sit there and write a masterpiece, or write a great novel, great screenplay, or whatever, bring to the poem.
Yeah.
These people came knowing that they were going to be taught,
Yeah.
and you were going to teach them. Just give us an instinct as to how, an idea of what that process was.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm laughing because I found if I got an email today from Will Storr, who wrote Science of Storytelling, which is wonderful, and he's laughing because his wife was on a residential writing course in Italy, in which quite a well-known writer basically sits up there saying, go and write something, and they went back and then they read it out and he got the other people to criticize it.
All right.
And that was it. It was a week. It cost them £7,000. And there is a school of thought that says that's teaching writing. I don't think it's that go holiday. Right?
No, but you had a lot of success.
But
People,
well, I was the complete opposite, which was I think sort of ruthlessly drill the principles of story structure, applies to this, which was quite controversial at the time. Again, because we are artists.
and how many months did it last?
It was 3 months in the classroom.
Okay.
And then they got to write, during that time they got to write 2 double scripts of their own and an episode of Dash Scenes.
So what happened in the classroom?
Well, I basically took them through all the principles of storytelling, there endless amounts of exercise. I mean, they used to sit at a desk, they all had computer terminals, and I give them tasks, like exposition tasks, so give me the backstory of this character through a sequence we're used to. And then we'd put it out on the screen, and everyone would see it, and then we'd critique it. And, I remember when Tony Jordan brought the writer came to give a session once, and he said, it's like going to one of those laboratories where you're watching beagles smoke. So that was amazing. Quite disturbing, which it probably was. But actually, what happened is, always every year we did it, which is like 20 years, writers, the students were great. They knew what they were in for, but they get works, and then they get better.
That's interesting. Right.
Yeah, because it was a bit like if you're learning to play the piano, you teach yourself to play the piano, and then you're singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you go to a proper piano teacher, and they wow you around a knuckle, so didn't learn it properly. You get worse, and then once you learn it, you forget about it.
Right.
And so it becomes unconscious. I mean, writing is done by the unconscious. If I'm great writing is done by that. But to do that, you're unconsciously, you have those tools there that are shaping and guiding and helping you and building, I have to go here, there, and all those things. It's like learning to ride a bike. You ride a bike when you never think about it.
Yeah.
And the first couple of years I did it, I had no idea if it would work, but then it did.
So once they've been through the period of classes,
Yeah.
you then went out and
Well, they then had to do an episode of EastEnders, an episode of
and were they ones that were actually broadcast?
Yeah, and they got paid to do it. So I mean, that's the thing. Is like when I got there, the failure rate for new writers was something like 85%. It was unacceptable, and it was horrible because people would come out with dreams, they'd be crushed, they'd never work. Okay, but so it's very quickly go. Okay, well, what you need is a safety net. You need to be able to fail. So we said, we'll have you for a year, and as long as you get through one of these shows, and you should promise, then they'll pitch to you and they'll come on.
Yeah.
Which is what happened. They mostly got kicked off one or the other shows, which is again a useful lesson.
Yes.
But it didn't mean the end of their career.
No.
So over time, by the end of the year, if you've written 4 scripts of 8, then you are set up to be a writer. I reckon if you've got.
That leads me to what possibly was one of the things that you told them about, which was that your 10 questions.
No, good shit.
Absolutely fascinating. I'm going to take you through each of them.
That's not trouble. Go on.
Well, I've got more written down.
Thank God.
The first thing is, whose story is it?
Yeah.
Explain.
Okay, well, I mean, it's the protagonist. Who's your protagonist? Who's driving the story? Who's the one who chooses? Who's the one who's not passive? But and sometimes that's really simple. If it's Indiana Jones, it's obvious. In a multi-protagonist story, it's more complex, but the same source applies. Because, for example, if you do Thelma and Louise, if you do Thelma's story, then Louise will just wrap naturally around that.
Right.
Because it's opposite to the way.
Yeah, they change over.
Yeah,
That's
they swap sides.
Great film.
Yeah, it's what? Yeah, and same with Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
Heavily in stats, set. And so you just do whose stories, work that out. Everything else will come later. Correct.
Number 2, what is your character's flaw, or what do they?
What did he get?
Explain.
So, I mean, if each story is a unit of learning, if you think of Casablanca, we're very unreal, so forgive me. At the beginning of Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart says, I stick my neck up. And at the end, he saved the world, he sacrificed his own happiness to yourself. Yeah, it's that, what's the thing that will be killed at the end?
I still watch Casablanca.
It's amazing. Yeah. So your character has a flaw at the beginning, the end, and that's archetype distortion. Now you can subvert all of these things, but fundamentally, a character needs to work with the mechanism.
And then 3, which is we talked about a bit about, was the inciting incident.
Yeah.
Give us some examples.
What if? It's the one, in any trailer or pitch, it's the what if. What if a shark swam into a sort around and started eating?
Could the breakout of war be that?
Yeah, it can be. It's the problem. It's the problem that the story's going to confront. So in Thelma and Louise, it'll be the shooting in the cargo. In Honorary, and in Slumdog Millionaire, it's Getaway being arrested. Normally they're pretty obvious.
And then, what does character want?
Yeah. So the inciting incident is the problem, which produces the desire for central characters.
Right.
So, in The Queen, for example, God, I was a good example. So, oh my God, someone tried to kill my father. I'm going to kill that. That's all it is. It's more complex than that. It gives some kind of, simpler it is, better. So just the desire to inciting provokes that they believe will restore order to their world.
Okay, and then what obstacles are in the character's way?
Yeah, I mean, just the story has to have conflict, and the other thing is, of course, conflict must always escalate. Right. Because if you think of it, you're scrolling through X or Twitter, it's like each time you hit something new and exciting, you get a delivery in here, right? It's like an obstacle. So they have to get bigger and bigger. If you read the same tweet 6 times, you should next.
The next one I'm very familiar with, which is why should you care?
Yeah.
A number of times I've been at executives meeting, police said we don't like these people.
Yeah.
We don't care what's going on. And to a certain extent, they can write like that.
Yeah, it's empathy. I mean, the word the empathy is vital because.
But you can quite like a baddie, can't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the way to look at why should I care is every story is saying to its audience, it's crying out to its audience, can't be me.
Yeah.
Can't be me for an hour. God, see what it's like to be me. Because that's what happens. It's like mirror neurons in your brain. If a story is working, behave as if you are trapped in that artificial world. So in character, you do that here. You can feel it viscerally. So that's what you want. And so, there's the famous Only to Kill You, where, Joe
the ice cream.
sitting there, and then you spied the little girl, and she pours the ice cream over the little girl. Like, 20 years ago, we would have never been allowed to do that. So all the audience would hate you, but actually, it's horribly subversively thrilling.
Right.
It is. It's
You're right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, from that, what's at stake?
Yeah.
Jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have jeopardy, but why not?
And what do they learn? Very interesting. I was listening, fantastic program that Yorke does. It's called Opening Lines, which has so emeralding through it. It's a fantastic radio program you get on BBC Sounds, correct?
Yeah, it's on Radio 4 Beast.
Radio 4 produces that. and he takes a book and analyses this, and has guests in to talk about it as well. Brilliant. But I've listened to quite a few of them. I listened to one on Gone with the Wind, which I hugely suggest you should hear. But today
Scarlet's a great example.
I was in.
The most extraordinary. I mean, it's a horrible kind of family offensive. But it's really, if you look at Gone with the Wind, it played in Leicester Square every single day, 3 times a day during the second.
Yeah.
It's a packed audiences. And the reason it did that is because, of course, Scarlet is a character in the middle of it. He says, I won't survive.
Yeah.
And so that speaks to your audience in a way, it's immensely powerful, although it's survival.
Today I listened, because I enjoy these. There's a new one on Don Quixote, which is a very long book, by the way. You try that. But in that, in it, the characters learn something through it. And when I was listening to it, I thought, oh, they're one of those 10 questions. What do they learn? And they learn
to overcome their flaw.
And they almost reverse in the same way that Dom and Louise do, don't they?
In Dom, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they swap places then.
But then you've got how and why. I'm not quite sure what way to that.
Well, how and why is you bring the character changes because in narrative structure, you bring a character face to face with the consequences and not yet. Oh my God! If I want to avoid this, I have to change. It's a bit like how do you persuade someone that voting for Brexit was bad idea? And you throw their company into administration as a Brexit. They'll think again about whether it was I did it. You bring a character face to face with the guy. Same to how any exchange of minds, they will be shown the consequences of not changing.
And during these teaching sessions when you were going through these sort of questions, obviously it's an idiosyncratic process.
Yeah.
Right. So that everyone would have different answers, but would they adhere to certain rules?
Well, I think they're just for me, they're tools to analyse the story. I mean, writing is fundamentally something that's innate. You stick a pen in your heart, that's you should. Jimmy McGovern, the great Jimmy McGovern said, you write a script twice. The first time it's you stick the back in your heart, bleeds all over the page, all your rage, all your anger, that shit. It's like a format draft, and then the second draft is you change the side of your brain you're using, and you use all the analytical craft skills at disposal to weaponize those first impulses into something you make powerful.
Is that in that context of the first and second draft? He's sadly dead. A friend called Alan Park, who's a very great British film director, and he told me that he spent a year writing the script once, when he would drink hugely from that period, and he said he was drinking every day, and he was getting pissed, and he joined the script for his nice brilliant script he never learned. And he went to walk. He suddenly realised that he'd been drinking like that and had to stop. He read it sober. It's like his biggest learning jump. Threw it away.
Well, most first drafts are terrible, even when you're sober.
Yeah. The last thing is, of course, how does it end? I mean, do you decide how it ends more or less as you start?
I think you have to know where you're going, or nothing will work. I mean, you don't. Well, sometimes you have to write the first draft to work out. But if you look at the amount of shows that fail, in TV drama terms, if you look at Westworld, Beef, Lost, or Game of Thrones, famously at the end it's terrible because they don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
Because they spent all their money and effort developing the show as times then shows. You get it. I mean, everything in the beginning of a story has to pay off the end. So you need to know what's in the end to make sure it's
Right.
It's that. So, again, you may not always know to begin with, but it's like, TV is really strange because writing a book should be like building a house. You don't start building to then, but in TV, you start building and people will come and say, oh yeah, but can we have a swimming pool? No, we'll just extend the basement. And then that's why so much TV looks a mess, because no one's pinned it down and discussed on the stage. And that's
going to the commissioning process, which you will add for a bit, give us a sense of on what criteria you used to go along with somebody, notwithstanding the person in front of you, somebody you knew or didn't know, something you read that you never imagined was going to be shown to you. How did that operate in your terms? What were the sort of criteria that you'd use for going down that?
I'd love to say it's really logical, but it's not really. It's emotive. I mean, the two things. I mean, you have to know who your audience is.
Right.
Yeah, that's really, because there's no point in making, dark, gritty, nihilistic horror dramas and stuff like on ITV. You're not looking spot that is they just so you have to have that in mind. But once you've got that worked out, it's well, what do they respond to? Who do your audience want to be? Yeah, it's really striking that the big hits on BBC One always feature female protagonists and like Abigail, but the obvious and what they're must be similar. But English is what one's in our Sharon's because of course that's who the biggest audience of terrestrial TV is.
But you've had situations where you've gone to something and that they've been turned down. Life on Mars, big example.
Yeah.
And you literally have to switch channels to.
I did, yeah. I walked off from Channel 4 in huff with Mark Thompson. So
right.
Mark Thompson said to me, he said, I strongly advise you never to make this no back.
And it's one of the most successful dramas.
But he was sort of right. I mean, there were certain things, but for me...
What were the criteria there?
Well, the criteria there was like, I just thought this is so fun. And I loved it. So it just shined with everything I loved. The people who brought together to remember that teacher was swinging. But we'd all grown up watching John Thor, Dennis Woodsman, beating the crap out of and policing obviously wasn't like that anymore. And I was fascinated by the way policing changed, particularly when the Police and Criminal Evidence Act had changed everything. You can't beat suspects after. Thank God. No, but I thought, wouldn't it be fun to explore that again to a foreign perspective? And then it ties in with what the guys from development were doing. This just came together like, this is going to be really good fun.
Right. What's the most exciting commission that you played that turned out to be what you'd hoped it'd be? Something like Street?
Well, anything with Jim McGuff, just because he's just in that film's Britain's way. It's right there, probably. So that was great. But again, you don't have to do much with Jim. So just do it. What was it? Shameless was really interesting because it was terrifying because it didn't quite know what it was for ages. And all we knew, we were terrified that it would look grim. They would look like a cat roach. Right. And also, nothing against look, it's great, but no one's going to watch that on Channel 4 prime time because they say it's 100,000 people. So like it's desperate. I'm going to make it funny. If you look at all the promos for Shameless originally, bright colour, blue skies, everybody's smiling like inane looking. Don't look upset. It's kind of really silly, but it was partly that. Really upbeat music as well. I think, but the defining thing, the epiphany we had, because we were messing around in the development section, trying to work out what it was. Started as a simple film.
Really?
Yeah, and then it was a serial.
Right.
And then when I arrived at that point, I kept saying, I don't know what it is. I can't see this. I don't know why I'm enjoying this. What is it? And then it was Tim Garden, who was the director of programs at Channel 4 at the time. He said, well, it's the Waltons, isn't it? And I looked at him like he was mad, and I realised he wasn't mad. Actually, I realised, oh my God, you're a genius. So if you're too young to remember what the Waltons did, it was the biggest show in the world in the 70s. It was 65 million people watched it in the States alone. And it was like, we were poor, we were happy. The Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, God will heal Evans. And so we went back and we watched it, and then we took everything from the Waltons and put it into Shameless, modeled it, and then suddenly just what?
Everybody steals irons.
Yeah, and it's like it's exactly the same show with the values that Channel 4,
right.
which were obviously far more drugs.
Right. How are we doing? Who's monitoring our time thing at best?
I think, 5 minutes next.
Okay, because I want to go into something that I'm fascinated about myself. how do you deal with the directors? How do you deal with that? Because they are often the authors of your success back in England. They will take something that could be really badly done. How do you make sure, A, choice and the criteria, and B, in terms of the process, it can go, a director can be involved in. I just made a list here of things, but the treatment, the Bible, the pilot, all of those things. How do you handle that? Because, you know, as a director that I've worked with some very great directors that I know that the attitude is very much a question of personalizing material, giving it more than the material provided on the page.
Yeah.
However,
TV is more writer and producer-led, director-led. Yeah. So I think for me, they would say it was easy. So you just discuss with the production company, find who was most sympathetic to the material and keep a close eye on them if you're lucky and sort of attack and see if it's worth put in or whatever. Yeah, when you're doing film, I mean, I didn't do that many films, but yeah, it's Paul Greengrass, you just get, it's your show.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to argue with it, it's quite scary.
But going back to the TV thing, I mean, for instance, the TV directors that you were looking at and then we finally had, that they would have some same cast.
Yeah, they're coming for
that
cast
is
for
crucial,
them. Yeah, they're absolutely. I think they're there for the beginning of pre-production. So the design, the schedule, the casting, the set builds, all of that stuff. They're there for that, but they're not there for the writing process. I mean, the script's commission, the film as director, but with a film, they're normally there much as their film. So no, because it's just I don't know. It's historically it's how it's developed. It's also one thing as well because you need to control directors to more time budgets.
I mean, I had quite a bit about all that. I've worked for it to move that. I will bring up the one thing that pleases me in this context is that I've known him socially. Do people as well know who I mean by Derek Jarman? Yes. Derek and I met socially, and it's about the kind of work together. And then one day he came to my office and I was running a sort of mini studio in the late 70s and early 80s, which we had fully funded films. And Derek came and put on my desk. It was about 20 or odd pages. He said, "Dad, this is my script for The Tempest." The Tempest by William Shakespeare, because no other Tempest. And it was incredibly brilliant. Version of the Tempest, and it's a film industry.
Yeah.
But I'm absolutely certain that he had thought from the second that he designed it in his mind that he had ideas in terms of visually and sort of people he was having. We had a very famous comedian who was going to play Prospero at one stage, down from the Carry-On. The sort of that exact mad idea that Derek used to have, which worked. So the reason I bring all this up is that why should that be the case with film and not with television? Because let's face it, most people nowadays see scripted films on television. What broadcast has changed so much. It's become morphed into this arena of the streaming business, and then there are these extraordinary things called, do you know about these little things I think they call them short reels? Yeah, short reels. Yes? Who has heard of short reels? You did. It's a kind of extraordinary phenomenon which the Chinese have been promulgating. Which are vertical. And it's completely fascinating. We are at the moment it's downgraded because it's mostly porn. That's the waste of a fabulous opportunity to reproduce the comics of my childhood, the Dandy and the Beano, it's on the film. But going back to this thing, the directorial input is so crucial to my world, the world cinema film. And I've seen Greg Kelly. I felt their directorial input was completely crucial to the success. In Lord of the Flies, directed by my friend Mark Mundy recently.
Yeah, I mean, there are art house pieces like Wall Street or Big Principles. But fundamentally, economic reasons dictate everything is really tightly controlled by the Dungeon staff, and the rest are just bums. If you go to American TV, I mean, I was when I spent some time with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I was shocked originally because the director joined the week before the film,
Right.
and they film it and they don't edit it.
Right.
But in front of the door, I thought it was brilliant. Because directors are problematic people. You want to argue.
What?
And
We're
make you
pussycats.
go over budget.
We're pussycats.
Very castable and crane.
I was very lucky, actually. I had fabulous juice on GoldenEye, which I directed television for ITV. It was Brent Reed.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful.
No, they're brilliant. I mean, no, most of the time it looks very well.
But I was involved in the script right from the very beginning. Right. Okay, I know that I should not be given any dinner whatsoever. I'm going to change that here. I'm opening this out to everybody here, so let's ask some questions. Ask John whatever you would like to ask him. And don't be shy. For that moment. So, yeah. I project.
Yes.
How do you avoid, when you're telling the story, signposting? Because that's the worst thing when something's signposted so early on, it kind of affects the story. How do you avoid that?
It's a good question.
Right.
I mean, this George Miller, the great George Miller, said that storytelling is the orchestration of, it's the art of withholding information. Which is a brilliant definition. And really, it's like probably the first time you write your script, whatever, you are doing all those things, but then your task is to set a draft to remove it all. Fundamentally subvert expectations. The most powerful stories are always has a twist. I think it's that. So you can want to remove all that signposting as well, or make the signposting fake.
Okay, just throw them.
So they're expecting this, and then to get that. Again, don't into that. But so it's good. It's craft skill.
Wording.
It's a good question. It's gentleman.
Hi John, thanks very much for the talk, it's been fascinating. You mentioned something interesting about empathy and how important, I think you said, it is for the audience to have empathy for the protagonists. There's a sort of contemporary suggestion that empathy is a sort of lacking quality in each younger generation, and the suggestion is you blame social media, whatever the reasons are. If that's true, if that's the case, what demands does that place on the writer to enhance their characters, to try to fix that gap, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good question. I mean, it's vital and it's hard to do well, and if you overthink it, it makes it even harder. But I think, for me, I'd boil it down to some principles. Who do you already want to be? Just for that hour. And then the other thing, I mean, I can't, what's his name? The guy who directs Mission Possible for us, he's the one who always says, what's the most important question in the audience empathy? And he always says, do I give a shit about it? I don't know. It's like, am I right for that desire as much as you? And that can be really simplistic in detective thrillers. You want to get better one, just kill. But you get really interesting things like in Wolf Hall, because you love proper, some amazing character. And then what he does to Amberlynn is so disgustingly fat, is grotesque. But you find yourself rooting for White. And that's really interesting and complicated. Emotion is like rooting for Scott. The women's complicated. They're really interesting. So, but the biggest commercial stories are really simple. The audience wants what the cat spots. The ones that are interesting will be as big are the Lincoln type of stories. And there's a third type of stories where we don't give a shit on character ones, which would be Killers of the Flower, for example, where can't anybody wants to kill it out to capture woman. But it's also, I suspect, why, dare I say, a 3.5 hour film about £7
And it was this year, and it didn't work.
because you don't just
I thought it didn't work very.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting, intellectual, but it's not something you let into your heart. That thing, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's a basic as you always want to be. And yeah, some of those outtakes are pretty basic. You know, how fit.
Hitchcock's great. It's an interesting persons in interesting situations. That's all you look at.
That's
Good way.
you know.
Ladies up there at the back.
Sure.
Um,
There's a microphone coming if you want it.
I don't like.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting what you said in your book about like the midpoint and the way that things kind of reflect back and like the character goes on the reverse journey. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about like that point after the midpoint and where you go in between where like everything really falls apart, like that sort of kind of late middle section.
Yeah, okay, no, great, thank you. So the first half of Hamlet is Who Killed My Dad? The midpoint is, oh my god, it was glorious. It's a scene with the players, it's exactly unto it. Story in the second half is, what do I do about that? Yeah, really, that's a good example. The first half of The Godfather, part 2 is who tried to kill us. The midpoint is, oh my god, it was my brother. Second half is what I get to, but that's very similar. Okay, so that's the fundamental way of looking at it. In the second half is the consequences of the middle. The midpoint of Alien is when it bursts out of Jones.
Yeah.
You know, that is really clear then. It's like, oh, what are we going to do? It's kill or be killed. Yeah, and so it's the consequences of the characters who created meeting their worst fear in the middle of the story. Another example would be Moonlight, Lane's lovely film, which is the young boy who, his mother is a drug addict, his mentor, loves turns out to be dealing drugs. So he leads the first act, completely lost soul. He doesn't know who he is. Exactly halfway through the film, he has his first gay experience. He kisses his man on the beach. Yeah. And his immediate reaction is, I can't stand this. I hate this. I'm not this person. But he beats Kevin up. Yeah, and then he literally runs as far as he can to it. He rebuilds his body. He does everything he can. Changes his name. Everything he can to not be that person. Little. But in the end, he can run no further. And the last act, he goes back to Kevin. There you go. So the meaning's in the middle. Again, and it's so like, but often it's the thing you steer the most. I don't get that. I don't deal with the consequences of it. But it can be a drop. It's like you discover something that's strange and kind of like crazy. So exactly halfway through your film and wins, a film that has that extraordinary section experience, which just completely changes life. So that's a back or what has to do. And it's like a high, it's a drug high. So there's no one way of doing it, but what it does is it changes you. So it's going to remember how it. About that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I like the way you phrased it with like, what am I going to do about it? I feel like that helps.
Yeah. It's always like, oh my god, what am I going to do about it?
Which one, yes. Chapman Bouchard.
Thank you so much. I was just saying, what a great book that Trip to the Moon. It's really, really good. I mean, there are so many things in this book that really, open my mind to, storytelling. And one thing I have to disagree, but I think that story, like scriptwriting books, although they're kind of cheesy, I think they're important.
Yeah,
Because, especially in start, to understand like what the heavy structure, through structure is.
Yeah.
So definitely for that first step, but actually to able to enjoy the book, it was really, it was huge pleasure. I really enjoyed that, when you were explaining about the reversal, like, like turn David through, like when we find out that actually, Carlin shots like this goodie this time. So that was very, very interesting. And my question is more about the AI, like more actually TikTok. Like, how do you think TikTok is going to change the way you consume stories? How do you TikTok, how that short form, how is it different from the way we know how to write story? How is it different from how the Shakespeare was telling stories? And we know, I mean, even in your book, like you explain how Trump uses those certain techniques to kind of persuade us, which was very interesting. But what do you think the future of storytelling will be? Are we going to follow the short, TikTok, persuasive way of telling stories, or are we going to go back to actually how the Shakespeare talks?
Yeah, that's a great question, and if I knew the answer, I could do it myself. I think fundamentally, storytelling doesn't change. The rules are the same. What changes is how it adapts to the means of dissemination. Plays have acts because they're consuming real time, and you have to give an audience a break, and you take or it's kind of important. And the books have chapters because you don't consume them around time. And so TikTok is just another story delivery system, fundamentally, as is Twitter. But the big change is obviously is the weaponization of data-driven. Okay, so basically stories are data delivery systems. The best data delivery system is your phone. So this is your enemy. Yeah, but it's your friend. Yeah, so if you're watching a film and it's a bit, but if you're like me, you're watching a film and I went through the other night, and you look at your phone because what you're finding is saying, well, there's better drugs here. Mm-hmm. But
you explain that in the book.
And it's really I mean, all stories, like the power of any story is its ability to induce emotion. So it's an ability to trigger. I mean, I'm simplifying massively. Adrenaline, and so is your story doing that? And if your story doing that, then that will survive. But I think what's more disturbing, which I think you're hinting at, is this is becoming a substitute for intellectual engagement. It's becoming a substitute for the things that are so essential to our ability to thrive as a race, which is fundamentally our ability to read, write, and articulate in reality. What the fear that many people have is people are reading far, far less, dealing with complicated narratives, less, which means that intellectually, we are not as challenged, and we don't think as critically about things as we do, because we could just look at that, and do that. And I think short form, micro drafts, what we've done is what thing on.
I'm told that it's my agent told me that.
It's a real problem. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old boy, and I'm terrified of his attention span. I mean, he does read, so I'm okay, but he would much rather just watch. But
Picking up on you, I'm glad you read the whole book. It's a fabulous book, isn't it? Really.
I go in actually.
Oh yeah, it's
yeah,
a lot of notes.
It's actually I started to literally highlight the phrases. So
Oh my God.
there's a lot. Thank you for that.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But I'm taking on from your question, AI. What sort of impact do you think it's going to have, and to what extent can you control it? Because I'm already, getting pressure to use it in terms of what I'm doing. Or you yourself, research, for instance.
I use it for research. That's brilliant. If you program it correctly, prompt it correctly, and make sure you're critical.
Yeah.
Then you need to source this from these stepping sources, by the proofs. Then it's fine. I did get my AI program. I got it to write an episode of Hollyoaks. I think it was okay. Just so I was curious.
Can it get broadcast?
No, God, my God, it's copyright free. Well, I had to cut this from. No, I just thought about it, and it did. But it worried me because I thought, well, like if you're running good shows, your biggest cost are writers. Why don't you get rid of most of the writers? I witnessed it both AI and 2 writers. People just override and you could do that. I mean, it would scare the hell out of me for the future of the industry. But it would, you'd probably get away with it. It wasn't great. Now it may get much, much better. But fundamentally, it will never give you what a great writer could give you. Because at the end, it's impersonation. It's following received lines of thought. So I'll give you that because that makes drama special. So I'm hanging on to that. There's a kind of thing. But it's a useful tool. I mean, I started my first job was proper job as I started. I storylined EastEnd by myself for a whole year. I sat in my bedroom, literally every day just doing this and chain smoking.
Were you paid to do it?
Yeah, no, I would cut that would be insane. But I was literally producing 3 episodes a week every week of the year. And it was just me. Now they have a team of 6 people. But I know if I had I would have used it.
Didn't they hire you on the Archers or something?
Years later, I went back and I did up the
Robinson the Folk.
Really? Long service leave.
And everybody in this room seen the Archers, only listened to the Archers.
Yeah. It was great. The audit hated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had to go. I did a story, which actually wasn't my story. I inherited it from my predecessor, but I did a story about witness protection. And a lot of people got really angry saying it's a police story. This is the Archers. And I was forced to go on the radio for feedback where I was like, it's really bad. What? She just said, I've never met anyone so angry. Archer stands. I said, we cut that. And I said the same, very politely. So I said, it was kind of. And I said to you, the drama is conflict. Things happen. Bad. I said, nothing should ever happen in the Archer.
That's wonderful. We've had gay kisses since then.
So I loved it. It's amazing.
Yeah, great. One last question that I've been told. Over here. Pete?
Hi. Well, thank you for that. I know that you said that your father had warned us against politicians, but do you think that writers are even more emotionally manipulative? And the second question, has your career, listening to you tonight, has your career changed your view of audience?
They're sort of linked in a way. I mean, I think writing is manipulation. A good writer is manipulative. It's because they're trying to persuade you of the argument, the story that's making. They're trying to make you believe in something that's artificial and making believe it's true. And saying the good writer swamps your emotion that erodes your logical faculties to allow you to believe that a story works, making it what a great story is. So they're all doing it. I think it's there are some you love because they're telling you stories you want to hear, and some you get angry because they're stories you don't want to hear, or you're just aware of the manipulation. So the best writers are deeply manipulative, they hide it, so you never know. But if you ever pick up a story and you put it down, but 6 hours later, and time stood still, and you can live in this extraordinary world. That's the most profoundly manipulative to what my story comes, I think. And in terms of audiences, I mean, that's what audiences respond to. I mean, the thing I always used to hate is, in the early years of my career at BBC, we were told all the time that audiences are stupid, so they had to be told it. And I worked out very quickly that wasn't true. Audiences are very clever. You can still manipulate. But actually, what glued you to the drama was you doing the work as an audience, you working out the connections, you working out, that's subtext. Whereas when I started drama, that was seen as bad writing. You had to explain. The note we always used to get from my old boss was, I don't think my 65-year-old mum in Bookful will understand this. So it, well, to which I was saying, your mum's really stupid. Well, that would have been fine. But we used to get notifications from the EastEnders, from the various controllers, people said, what? They'd say, can they stop talking in rhyming slang? So it's EastEnders. and yeah, but people won't understand it. And that's not true, because even if you don't understand it, you can appreciate it and love it, and then it's like watching Winder and Winder on the screen. This love of language that you don't always understand. You're entranced by it to much more of that. So I think that's a universal kind of thing. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think exactly as you do that, what reviews you found that the week was like, these are ways to let your audience. And you feel up when you've said certain things you can overcome. But anything, you're the object as well. But I just thought, how do you view the human species?
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
How do you figure it out?
Well, it's easy to get cynical and go, just put in some sex and violence. But it doesn't really work. I think that don't underestimate the intelligence of the viewer. So this sit be all right.
Sadly, we got my curtains. Never underestimated audience. And never underestimated size either. There's only 2 people there. One of them might be pretty advisor.
Yeah, I did do a show to Edinburgh to one man and his dog once. Which is why I went to Timothy. I said we're being ushered to
Thank you. Thank you so much, John, and thank you, Don, for such a stimulating and generous conversation. We've had a boot camp, I think, this afternoon. I think you've got us all signed up to your next workshop. It's been enormously interesting and very stimulating. Don, thank you for guiding us through. John, thank you for being so generous in sharing your insights and thoughts, and for having faith in the human species at the end that we will overcome. I also need to give a couple more thanks. Thanks to Will for organising this. Thank you also to Lottie and Blair for great organisational genius in bringing us all together, to the tech team for making it so, and to you for fantastic questions this afternoon. And I think this is not the end of the question period. So after this, if you go through the doors and to Le Touche restaurant, there are drinks and nibbles, and we would be absolutely delighted if you would join to continue the conversation. But I think this is the moment to say thank you so much, John, for sharing with us and for fantastically reminding us. Thank you.